Hi everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Connor Keys, and I wanted to record a video in response to a recent comment that I received on my most popular video to date. The link will be in the description. Here is that comment. I have a question. Whenever I entertain a hypnosis, I find myself wondering, am I giving up on my own belief in my own ability in some way, subconsciously, by accepting or believing in another's ability to suggest over my own? I thought this was a phenomenal question. It gets at the nature of not only hypnosis, but at the nature of agency and at the nature of really what's going on here in life, which is my favorite thing to talk about. So I will post my response to the comment right here, and I'm going to talk about each of the points that I made in my comment in detail. What I said was, hello, friend. This is a fantastic question. First of all, if you are meant to listen to this, you will listen to it. It really is that simple. So doubting, second guessing, or questioning it only creates unnecessary suffering. Now, let's talk about that. What we are working towards, especially in a project like this on this channel and in my message, I talk about this in my book and everywhere that I'm invited to speak on a podcast or what have you, that there is something else going on here. And our conscious identification with resistance is the source of our suffering. Now, a lot of us have heard this in other places like manifestational conversations and awareness and all this kind of thing, right? That if we could just let go, if we could just let go, then we would be free of the suffering and resistance that we feel, right? And a lot of people might wonder, well, yes, I've heard this before, and golly, it's hard. It's hard to let go of resistance. And my friends, yes, it is. The issue with that is that the very belief that it's hard to let go of resistance is in some ways just a kind of observational fact about the nature of being here in life. That ceasing identification with the one experiencing the pain that we're experiencing is somehow both, I talk about this in the book, it's both the easiest and the hardest thing that a person could ever be asked to do. Part of that is just a fact, right? Because it's the ego and the identity that wants to hold on so hard to the contents of its experience, because the ego thinks that it needs facts. It thinks that it needs evidence. It thinks that it needs this kind of informational structure upon which it can bolster its perception of self as separate from the world. In other words, the ego is trying to find reasons and evidence that gives credence to its kind of default position of separateness. When what you and I are after here is unification with life and with everything that's going on here. So, on the one hand, that's really, really challenging. And on the other hand, it's actually somehow paradoxically, and that's what I love about it, is that it's paradoxically also true, that relinquishing this tightly held grip that we have on being the one who's suffering is actually incredibly easy. It's actually the easiest thing. It literally is a matter of just doing it. And this sounds funny. I get to this kind of point in conversation when sometimes in podcasts and interviews and things like that, where I'm asked, it's easy to say just trust, or it's easy to say just let go or just be, but how? But how? And my friends, the answer will always be to that question, but how? The answer will always be there is no how. it's that conscious mind, it's that ego, which wants to see itself as separate from the object of its desire in time. And in seeing itself as separate from it, it thinks that there is a way to get there. So it wants to know how. How do I get there? You don't, because you already are. In the fullness of you, in the fullness of time, in the fullness of everything that's going on here, that all of the consciousness that's arising and falling in this moment in which we find ourselves, this experience, there's only one thing happening. So isn't it ironic that the ego would take that cyclical kind of emergent unfolding of awareness in the world and then say, oh, there I am. There I am. That's me. And that's not me. And when that thing rubs up against that thing, it it causes contrast. It feels bad. Ooh, that one's me. Look at me, feeling bad. And so when we put it in certain terms, especially about we look at the nature of this kind of informational field that's of consciousness that's sort of constantly imploding and exploding at the same time, where there's this center point that it's constantly, that information is constantly flowing through and then passing away from. Because there's only one moment. There's only one of us. There's only one thing happening here. And so when uh, when we can flow with that, when we choose to flow with that, when we allow ourselves to flow with that, when we let go of the steering wheel, we wonder, why was I ever asking how in the first place? You were asking how in the first place because you're human, because you chose this experience of human becoming, human being, right? So the answer to the first question is actually, I think, really, really all that you would need to know about how to answer a question like that. The question being, am I kind of abnegating my own ability to suggest something for myself and kind of handing it over to someone else? Well, there is no one else. There's only one of us. And there will be a moment in which life calls you forward to do a certain kind of dance, which looks like a certain kind of remembering of self, of the inherent divinity of the consciousness in which you take part and which you are in your fullness. And that's it. So stopping it right there, second guessing it, is just that part of you that sits right on the precipice of your knowing and looks at things and says, "Oh, that's me," or "That's not me," or "Oh no, oh no," and then comes up with reasons to believe not only in its separateness, but why its separateness is painful to it. So that also is actually my fourth answer to the question. I said fourth, you and I are the same. So you don't need to have an ability to suggest for yourself over what others can offer for you. Seeing yourself as separate also creates unnecessary suffering. So my first and last responses to this person's comment essentially touch on the same spiritual truth with a capital T. It's only true. It's not that I have access to the truth. It's that the truth is the truth. And each of us know the truth completely, absolutely and completely. When I say it's the hardest thing but the easiest thing, that's like logically not even true, right? It's a contradiction. But if we can sit with it and appreciate the miracle of awareness and of being that we are being called to participate in, then that contradiction becomes a paradox, and that paradox looks like, and it feels like, most importantly, it feels like the emergence of something, and it feels like truth with a capital T, because we know it is. We know the truth here. And all we're doing is holding each other's hand and dancing this dance together, which is ironic, right? Because there's only one of us. So the middle answers to this, the second and third answers that I gave really have to do more with the nature of hypnosis. I said, second, all my guided hypnoses are designed to elicit what your unconscious knows is best for you. I'm asking questions that elicit your ideal, rather than suggesting to you what your ideal actually is. Only you can know that. This ties in really nicely to the answer that I was just giving. Third, I'll say that anyone else suggesting to you what your ideal is going to fail, because this methodology only works if it's true and your unconscious knows whether or not it is true for you. So, again, back to the nature of truth, and back to the nature of truth as a kind of emergent unfolding of something which is entirely intelligible and known by each of us. The hypnosis that I'm offering on this channel is actually just me showing up in the world, whoever I think I am, and you showing up in the world, whoever you think you are, clicking on a video and finding yourself being reminded of the things which you already know. My videos are actually evidence to this. If you go to the, say for instance, the feeling ideal in the void video, I'll give it a link in the description. What we're doing is we're finding our way into this kind of nothingness at the center of all this, where there's really nothing that your conscious mind can hold on to, and then realizing that at the center of this void, so to speak, of information and energy in which we exist, like the kind of what Neville Goddard calls it, the screen of space, what are the space from which the screen of space is projected, that in that void is you, is everything, is God, is all time and all possibility and all potential. And when what we're doing on this channel, when we're eliciting your unconscious knowing of what is ideal for you and allowing your subconscious to resonate with it, the subconscious is the part of you that has become so convinced by the contents of your conscious experience of the world, right? Believing that this is solid, believing that it's me, Connor, who's making my mouth move right now and making these words come out. The conscious mind is the sort of cutting edge of that experience of solidity and linearity and transactionality and space and time and those kinds of things. The subconscious is basically the part of you that takes for granted that awareness, that takes for granted all of those things, and then forms these deeply held beliefs about the world, and then orients itself to the world as if it's solid, as if it's linear, as if this is time and space. So that's what the subconscious is. It's just a set of beliefs about what your conscious mind and your ego tell you by default are true. Your unconscious is everything that you actually know. It's what's unconsciously understood by you in your fullness, right? So when we elicit what your ideal is, I say that it's the unconscious. If you notice in these videos, I say it's the unconscious that's answering the questions, because unconsciously, not subconsciously, but unconsciously, you know. You know exactly what's ideal. You know exactly what's ideal, actually, not just for you, my friends, but for everyone. The ideal is this flow state. It's like the flow state of the entire universe, in which you can kind of just orient yourself automatically, especially when you can look at the things in your experience and in the field of, on again, Neville Goddard calls, what Neville Goddard calls the screen of space. you can look at that and think, this is a dream. You can do that. You really can do that right now. And that's one way of moving from the default orientation of the conscious mind to the world as linear and solid and real and all that. My friends, it's real. It's realer than real. It's as real as could be, you know? And that's exactly the point. It's as real as can be. So what can be? What can be? Because you as a co-creator of this experience, you as the dreamer of this, as the imaginer, actually in Neville Goddard, I believe in the Law and the Promise, he refers to it as imaginism, that you are becoming an imaginist. So imagine it. What's ideal? You know what it is. You don't have to figure it out. And whatever arises for you as whatever is ideal, let it arise. And don't judge it. Don't judge it, because what's ideal about it is some kind of resonance with that universal flow in which you are being invited to take part by watching this video, by breathing, by existing. So I thought this was such a good comment that it warranted a deeper response in video form. So I would actually like to pass the buck as well. And as the listener, I'd like to say that if you would like to send me a voice message, you can do so. If you go to connorkeys.com/#contact, you can leave me a question and I will respond to that question in video form in the same way that I've done this video right here on this YouTube channel. And so this is a way of getting spiritual, philosophical life coaching for the benefit of everyone. So you have burning questions about the nature of reality and all these kinds of things, this wacky stuff that I love to talk about, you can ask. And you can ask in a way that will actually add to the life of the world by you being curious, being courageous, and showing up. How cool is that? Again, this is Connor Keys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Oh, and by the way, yes, I am.